San Francisco 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch just spoke to the media with their exit interview. And so what we are going to do is we are going to react. We are going to look at some clips and we're going to take a look at some of the biggest takeaways from today. There were a lot of things that were discussed, future of players, coaching, all kinds of moves to be had. So we're going to take a look at it all. We're going to react to it all and discuss, do we agree with the direction of the San Francisco 49ers? So we're going to get into all of that right now. Can you guys drop an SDS in the chat? Smash that like button and let's talk about it all right now. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, they have spoken. John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan. Exit presser today definitely came away with a lot of takeaways. We have some roster moves that will be happening. We have coaching moves that will be happening. Obviously, the recent news with the 49ers is they have fired Brian Schneider and they are moving on from Nick Sorensen. Now, Nick Sorensen still remains under contract and, he is actually in the running for being the 49ers potential special teams coordinator. So some people were happy, some people weren't happy, but it does sound like Nick Sorensen will remain. He just won't be the 49ers defensive coordinator. They're going to continue to do their search, and also in regards to the special teams coordinator position, they're going to continue to search there as well. So I think that will be something to monitor. But actually, I wanted to do the reaction this way. I'm sure that some of you had some trouble gaining access to the press conference because the 49ers did not stream it. But shout out to John Chapman. I was able to listen into it through KMBR. But if you didn't have any access to the stream, John Chapman did a great job of pulling clips. So I want to reference some of his clips. I want to listen, like we can watch and listen to what was being said. And then we can react from there. I figure that's how we can kind of go about this for some of you guys that missed what was said. So I'm going to need my Sourdough Squad producers in the chat. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear the audio when I play it. And if we can go from there. Oh, yes. Before we do that, Robert Saleh is expected to be pursued by the 49ers for their defensive coordinator position. I know a lot of fans were really happy to hear that today, but let's talk about some of the things. So this is Kyle Shanahan on firing Nick Sorensen and what their plan is moving forward. Remember, let me know in the chat if you guys can hear or not.
First of all, real tough decision. I love Nick as a person and I love him as a coach. Still trying to hope to keep him on board. And another.
Hold on.
Yeah, first of all, it was a real tough decision. I love Nick as a person and I love him as a coach. Still trying to hope to keep him on board in another capacity because he's a guy I don't want to lose. But just where we're at really as a team, where I think we need to go. There's a lot of big decisions ahead for us. And as hard as it is for me to come to this conclusion, but I feel there's some options out there that can end up being a better option in the situation that we're in for our team. And when really it comes down to that, the position I'm in, regardless of anything else, that's always the stuff I got to go with. So it was a real tough decision for me. And I'm still hoping that we can keep Nick here. But I do feel there's some other avenues that in the long run will be better for the 49ers.
All right. So we already kind of talked about that. Nick Sorensen, potentially, uh, or not potentially, he is not the defensive coordinator anymore.
Of the scheme that
But it sounds like the 49ers are very, very interested with him remaining on the staff. And I think he's liked within the building. It just sounds like he wasn't ready for that position. It's a tough position, and it sounds like Kyle Shanahan is looking for something else and this is going to be a clip of him continuing to discuss that role.
we've had here. I mean, I think it's one of the hardest things to go to when you got the right guys in the right spots. But I do think people adjust to schemes, and I think you have to adjust too, depending on your personnel. And I think that was a tougher thing for us this year. Just going into the season, it was a little bit harder than past seasons. And some of the injuries we had, I think, made it really tough for Nick. And I thought he got better trying to adjust and do different things. But I do think that's something that definitely, I'm not saying you got to change schemes, but you have to have the ability, the history, and the knowledge of how to change some stuff up when you're in some certain situations. And I think that we do need that more going forward of the scheme.
So I like that particular part. I like what Kyle had to say. Part of it was due to his kind of lack of experience. It's hard for a guy who hasn't done this before to just start doing new things that maybe he's never done before. So what Kyle is kind of saying is even if things didn't go well, I do believe that the 49ers have to make some adjustments, and they have to bring in a coach that can make those adjustments. Now, there's a reason why they want to bring someone in that has similar mindset to how the defense has been structured in the past. But I think to that credit in what he is saying is even still playing within that structure and scheme, you got to be able to create and manufacture. And maybe that comes in the form of stunts, blitzes, and things of that nature. But you got to be able to do that. You got to be able to adjust on the fly. And that is what football is in its essence, being able to overcome situations, make adjustments. And it just wasn't happening. So the 49ers are going to be at least looking for someone who can do that moving forward. So I like the sound of that. I think it's, to me, a bit of a self-awareness regarding that situation. And I like it. At least makes me feel better about where they think this team should go, at least in regards to defensive coordinator. Kyle Shanahan continues to speak about Nick Sorensen.
I don't know. I haven't done it before. So I'm sure it is a challenge. It has to do with, is that something that you want to do? Is it something you're comfortable with? I know our building would be comfortable with it. I know our players would be comfortable with it. This was a tough year, but no, Nick didn't lose any respect or anything like that from any of our players or our coaches. And I think if you talk to anyone, whether it's with you guys in the media or it's just one-on-one, he's got a lot of respect from people here. And everyone does think he's a good coach. I spent these last 2 days having exit interviews. It's been, to go through these 2 days where all I do is just talk to people and you talk to everybody. Lots of good feedback on Nick. And I think the guys would be real excited if he was here next year.
So again, it comes back to Nick's a good dude. They just need someone with a little bit more experience. So this is Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch on the future of Trent Williams.
Trent's doing well. He's he had a bruise in the ankle joint, and it probably took a little longer than anyone anticipated. But sometimes that happens, and the good news is it's taken a positive turn. Trent's mindset is where it always is, and he's still very interested in being a great player that he is, and I think he's still got a lot left in the tank. So Trent's committed as ever, and we love having Trent Williams a part of us.
So I like the sound of that. That makes me feel good that Trent Williams is returning. I really like that. I hope that Trent is healthy, he's able to come back, and things are fine. But it is good to know that Trent will be back. I do think it is important to note that Jalen Moore is a free agent this year, so they may lose him in free agency. So they still might turn to getting more offensive linemen. But at least they are of the mindset that Trent will return. I know there was some question about if he was going to retire or not, and I'm sure those questions will happen after the end of every season. But as it stands right now, Trent Williams is planning on returning. Let's see. This one is what Kyle Shanahan wants in a new coordinator.
I mean, I'm looking for a guy who I think will fit with our team the best. I like to sit and talk to guys about our personnel. I want to obviously talk to someone about their plans schematically and what they like to do, but that's all great. What do you plan to do with our team? And that's what involves certain people. I mean, in terms of when they look at what we have, what they think we need going forward, what we got to go get. And so I want someone that kind of meshes with what I believe in. And, but I also believe in that you got to fit to come up with the best thing possible that fits our situation right now. So that'll be talking about our personnel, the roster thing, a lot of things like that, and what their plan would be with it.
All right, I'll take it. Sounds like Kyle's open. To some new things. I'll take it. We'll see what we get from that situation. And of course, one of the biggest conversations now about the San Francisco 49ers, and will remain to be one of the biggest conversations, is Brock Purdy, and paying Brock Purdy and all of these different types of things. I think that Brock and what they said about Brock today, I think that they continue to be very steadfast in at least what they've said. We'll play it out and then we'll react to it. So let's take a listen to what they have to say about Brock Purdy.
Spring workout start.
Well, listen, I think what we know about Brock is that he's our guy. We've got, we have interest in Brock being around here for a long, long time. He's done so much for our organization. He's won big games, and had a little tougher task, as we all did this year, with some of the things that happened throughout the course of the year. We just never could string games where we were all together. And through that, he continued to lead. He continued to play at a high level. So we have every interest in him being around. The way this thing goes, these press conferences are necessary, but always kind of silly because Kyle's coaching. We spend time together all the time, and there's big issues that affect the team. But he's just getting off coaching. He's had his door shut for 2 days, doing exit interviews. We were just up, but we were talking about our players. We'll have some time here in the coming weeks to sit together and put our whole plan together. That's obviously a priority, that position, and we'll give it that attention.
All right. I like it. I like what I'm hearing. So it sounds like the 49ers absolutely plan on moving forward with Brock Purdy, which was the expectation. But of course, we got to see how it all plays out. This one is John Lynch talking about the issues with the 49ers in the fourth quarter and finishing games.
Yeah, you don't want to have excuses. A lot of our finishers weren't out there, and then on top of it, we still had opportunities. We still put ourselves in good position, and we couldn't get it done. So we have to own that as a team. That's why we're 6-11. We have a high standard. We had high expectations. We fell short of that, and it's our job to fix that. And I know that Kyle and I are committed as we've ever been to doing just that. We don't plan on being in this place. Don't like it. It's terrible to sit home and watch something that you expect yourself to be in the tournament. And we're going to go about the work, and we're excited about the work to do just that. But I do believe we have finishers on this team, and got to continue to add to that. We got to continue to infuse youth and good football players to this team, and we'll do that. Yeah.
So we understand that the best ability in football is availability. and that absolutely plays a role in how the 49ers played this year. But I also do think it is beyond just the players that are out there. And John mentioned that. He said, even in those scenarios, we did have opportunities to win the game, and they let it slip through their hands. And so we've talked about that on this channel quite a bit. To me, it's a function of mentality. It's a function of coaching. It's a function of how you handle situational football. And when you have a situation where you're constantly losing fourth quarter games, I look at it from a standpoint of the 49ers, at least from an offensive standpoint, it feels like at times Kyle specifically will call games not to lose opposed to coaching to win. And it feels like a bit of a tentative type process. Just, of course, you have to be cognizant of running the clock out and doing those types of things, not being like crazy aggressive all the time like Dan Campbell. Like, no one's saying any of that. But I think there are some things that go along with it that feels like at times part of it is just like calling games not to lose feels like you can almost invite that in. And it's something that has persisted for a while. So I hope it's something that they can get to the bottom of, if it's players, if it's coaching, all of it, all that good stuff. All right. John Lynch on why 49ers always have so much drama. Look at his face. Why do the 49ers have so much drama, man? Why is that?
In the last few off seasons.
Yeah, I think every team has a certain measure of that. I think we have a lot of good players, and one of the things that comes with having a lot of good players is it's hard to feed everyone, and you got to make tough decisions. And we're certainly at a point where we've had a 5-year run with 4 NFC championships, 2 Super Bowls, and you have to go back to the fundamentals of really building the thing. The lifeblood of your organization needs to be strong drafts, because it gives you young players that you have under contract for. And so I think we had 7 players that were starters off that draft class, whether we expect them to be, they did, and they gained really valuable experience. I even had free agent guys like Evan Anderson who contributed, a lot. And so I think we're really excited about this rookie class and that movement. We got to continue to add to it. We have 10, probably right now 9 draft choices. We think we'll have 10 with a comp pick, but we need to continue to add to it in that way, and hope we continue to have hard decisions, because we have a lot of great players here.
So he didn't speak to the drama necessarily, but what he did speak to was a lot of it is contract related. And effectively, because it's contract related, puts emphasis on why you need strong rookie classes, because you have to be able to have an influx of continued young talent coming in to be able to play. And honestly, since the 2021 draft, where they traded 3 first-round draft picks for Trey Lance, and then their 2020 draft class was absolutely abysmal. 2023, I mean, obviously you have to give credit for, Brock Purdy panning out. But outside of that, it's, the Ty Davis Prices, the Danny Grays, the Trey Sermons of the world that just have been atrocious picks that can't even make it to the end of their rookie deal before they realize, like, this guy is not a guy at all. Damn, that's wild. Already updated the profile picture. Man. So effectively what John is saying is that, the reason why there's so much offseason drama is because it all comes back to the contract situation. And it's a double-edged sword, because if you're constantly in these big-time negotiations, it does mean you are acquiring talent. But at the same time, like what he's saying is you also have to be able to acquire young talent to be able to kind of withstand these situations, I think, a little bit more. But yeah, the 49ers, they're constantly surrounded by drama one way or the other. It doesn't matter. This one is apparently about Kyle and his thoughts on special teams.
I mean, what do you mean by I don't take interest in special teams?
Well, you say you're not watching the kicker tryouts and that kind of.
Well,
I know they're off.
Let me help Kyle there. I would tell you Kyle spends an inordinate amount of time with all phases of our team. Special teams is extremely important in the way we construct our rosters. The time is there. Now in kicking, neither of us are kicking specialists, so we don't sit here and profess to know everything about kicking and things of that nature. But the time issue, I'm sorry to interrupt, Kyle, but he spends plenty of time there.
I just don't BS you guys.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh, you turned it around on me there. But no, I just don't BS you guys with that stuff. But to say, we spent some heavy draft picks on special teams players, which I think is an investment. We spent some salary cap on guys. Bringing guys like George Odom, having Flanagan Fowles here these last couple of years. That's bringing back. Those are special teams decisions. Spent a third-round pick on a kicker. Making special teams changes is why special teams is important to me, because we do work at it. But it's wasn't good enough this year. I don't put that just on Brian by any means. Losing your kicker, losing your punter, when injuries do affect the roster, especially offense and defensively, what it did affect the most was special teams. And I think that was unfair to Brian and a tough situation to put him in. But I do think it's an avenue we can get better in, and you can't change the whole thing out. And so Brian ends up being the fall guy for that. And I really appreciate him. He did have a real good 3 years here and worked his tail off and was very loyal to us and is a very good coach. And he'll bounce back on his feet, and we'll be going against him soon, I'm sure. But no, special teams is part of football, and everything part of football is extremely important to us.
I missed Kyle actually referencing Schneider as the fall guy. I think what he's basically saying is there are a lot more reasons to why special teams was an issue this year than just him being a bad special teams coach. I think that's what the interpretation is there, is that there's a lot of other circumstances that played into why special teams were the way they were, but unfortunately he's responsible for all of it. And so as a result, they needed to make a change and they needed to move on. But interesting. I actually missed that when that was going live. So the Dre Greenlaw situation. So obviously yesterday the Dre Greenlaw situation took a turn when some family members of Dre and Fred Warner took to social media to kind of basically allude to the fact that he could be off in free agency. And let's just listen to what Kyle has to say on the matter.
You don't even know, guys. We haven't spent much time together yet. I've had 2 days with exit interviews with players and coaches. Players don't know either. And that's what's hard for players. They're under contracts. They know when their contract's going to run up. That's an emotional time for players, for their families, for wives, girlfriends, whoever it is, kids, just like it is for coaches when I can't always tell them exactly what their future is going to be the day the season ends. It's tied to a lot of other people. And I know I've been on that side. I know wives are texting you all day asking what the deal is, and they don't believe that you really don't have an answer yet. And I know what they look like when you walk them through the door and they're like, what are we doing with our lives? And you're like, I don't really know. There's a lot of things that you want to solve so fast for people. That is stressful for people sitting in our chairs. but you can't solve everything at once. A lot of things are tied together. And when you hear things like that, or Greenlaw, like, we're doing everything in the world we can to bring Greenlaw back. And we're not into losing really good players who are unbelievable people. So we're going to do everything we can to never lose really good players who are good people. But that's also a very hard challenge, very hard. And that's something that you don't just talk about in one meeting. There's too many things that connect to that. Draft, free agency, roster, years, all that stuff. And that takes weeks, months to decide. You don't even know, guys.
So I believe Kyle and what he's saying about that. I think a lot of the conversation that came from the social media posts was like an indication that Dre was already going somewhere else in free agency, which I talked about not only on my social posts, but on my channel here as well, was that it's impossible for Dre Greenlaw to be signed somewhere else. It's not free agency yet. It's not that time of the year. So the only thing that I could take away from what the ladies were saying is, at minimum, he's hitting free agency. Like, he's going to be able to dictate, or he's able, at least from what they've said, it seems like Dre is hitting free agency or is going to be able to test the market. Now, that could also manifest in a way where he is able to see what the market is and decide, I'm going to stay with the 49ers. They work out a contract based on what the market is saying, and Dre returns. There's also an outcome that exists where Dre does not return. So I don't know. I think it's very important for family members of these players to be very cautious and aware of what they are posting, because again, we are just in a time where social media provides a lot of clues in regards to the future of players, and it has been that way since about, I don't know, 2019 or so, 2018, where social media just has continued to grow in relevancy. And so it's, whether you like it or not, family members have revealed the future plans of some players on social media, and has gotten players in a lot of trouble as well. So that's just the thing, is like, I agree with Kyle. It's way too early to be able to dictate. Doesn't mean they haven't been able to have those conversations and say, you know what, Dre, we love you. Go test the market. Let's come back and talk about it there. And, maybe based on internal conversations inside their family, that maybe they're talking about that it's not going to happen. They're not going to return. I don't know. So anyways, I agree with what Kyle actually had to say on that. And I do think that there is still a chance he could come back. So we will see with that. This is Kyle Shanahan on scheme versus personnel on the season.
It's a little bit of both. First of all, like, regardless of injuries or anything, like, this year's most disappointing to me because regardless of injuries, I feel we should have been a playoff team. And then you never know what happens in there. But when I go back to the hardest thing for me this year was those 3 games I've taught you guys about. First one versus Arizona, first one versus LA, first one versus Arizona, second one versus Seattle. I thought we should have won those games, and we lost them at the end by, I thought, our own mistakes, which means we would have been 8-2 going into week 11. And that was the hardest thing, and then we had some real bad injuries, which were going to be tough. That's, to me, what made it steamroll to where we didn't have a chance to make the playoffs. So when I look at that stuff, like, that's the stuff that I feel we got to fix the most. And is that scheme? Is that personnel? I mean, that's football. You got to adjust. I mean, your scheme changes when people are getting hurt, when you can't do exactly what you want to do. It happens on offense all the time. You guys are going to see, I hear it from you guys, but I mean, the offense looks different when a different quarterback gets in there. It looks different when Christian McCaffrey gets in there. It looks different all the time, and that's how defenses can be too. But you have to build it that way, because it's really hard to just change something up and 3 days of practice. You got to have that foundation of how you implement it and where you think the season can go. And that's what you really truly try to build in the off season. And then in the training camp. And, that's something I think we'll be better at building this off season, having a little bit more time to do it, being a little more prepared for it. Because we saw where it went last year. And that starts with getting a coordinator in here who can help us map that out. And once we do map that out, it goes right to free agency and how to make sure we can get the best possible situation that we have out of the situation that we're in. And then it goes to the draft. And when that's over, all the guys are here and then you get to work. I mean, it's a little bit.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see what the 49ers do in this coaching cycle with the coaching hire. It'll be interesting to see how they attack this. But of course, personnel is going to dictate a lot of things as you move forward as an offense and a defense. Let's see what John Lynch has to say right here.
I can't say you always know. Like Jawan Jennings, we don't spend a lot of time watching like highlight tapes off the internet, but up in the draft meeting, someone said you should watch this highlight tape, and so we did that with Jawan, and it was insane. It really was. It was so you kind of had an idea of the type of competitor, and I smile when I talk about Jawan because I love the way he plays. I love the way he competes. You don't know on every player, but I think the process and the way we include everybody, the way we pair personnel staff with coaches and the thorough process we have, it's a good process. So you find guys like that. And I think we're going to rely on that process and challenge to continue to get better. What we know is when we have consensus up there, we do really well. And, we've done that and we need to continue to do that.
Yep, love Jawan, and just keep finding people who play football like Jawan, and just keep that mentality. If we could have a bunch of Jawans and George Kittles running around, that would be phenomenal. The 49ers did have a bit of a coaching update today. Here is Kyle on that.
I thought he did an awesome job, and Clay's role is going to be the same as it's been. Which has been the offensive coordinator. He just hasn't had that title yet. I mean, Clay's done as much as anyone on offense for these last 2 years. So this was his second year doing that, and he gets better and better each year at it. Just hasn't had the official title yet, and now he'll get the official title, which he more than deserves. But it's more about, recognizing what he's already been doing and doing at a high level. I thought he did an awesome job.
So the 49ers have promoted Clay Kubiak to be offensive coordinator. If you guys didn't know, he actually called the plays against the Arizona Cardinals. And as Kyle said, basically he's going to have the same exact role that he did last year. It is just a title change. So, but I'm curious to see, Kyle's done this now twice this year in preseason. He let Clay call the game, and then now in the final game of the year, he also let Clay call the game. So is Kyle opening up to be a little bit more collaborative? Is there a potential room for maybe Kyle to trust a little bit more in a guy like Clay? To help him with the offense next year. I don't know. We'll see, but I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. I think it's a good sign. I think it also kind of shows a little bit of growth with Kyle and all that stuff. But here's Kyle continuing on the play calling aspect right here.
Yeah, I'll continue to call plays, but Clay and I have done everything here the last 2 years together, kind of hand in hand. When we put the game plan in together, yeah, I call it. Only one person can speak to the quarterback, but him, Furster, Fleury, those are the guys I rely on through play calling throughout the game. It's not like I'm just in silence there calling every play. I'm discussing it with the guys we prepared for it with in the week, discussing it with the guys who are talking with their players and what they see, and it's the same thing we all did for Clay versus Arizona. Yeah, I'll continue to call plays, but
Yep, pretty much what we just talked about. This is Kyle Shanahan on Ricky Pearsall's rookie season.
I thought Ricky had an unbelievable season. I mean, I know the gunshot wound is the biggest, obviously, but I've never had a rookie player miss all of OTAs in training camp, and have much of a successful rookie year. It's tough to do that. For him to do that and then get into week one, which I knew he would be way behind because of that situation, and then get a gunshot wound kind of made me think that we were going to get nothing from him. And just in terms of how could we and how hard that would be on him, but how quick he came back from that. And then when he did, just to watch him go through rookie things, in a live NFL game and stuff, and then having to watch him come back from that stuff throughout the year and still hit a rookie wall without a foundation of an offseason and stuff like that. I thought it was a huge success for him this year. Yeah. I thought Ricky had a.
I agree with that. I thought all things considered, with Ricky Pearsall, just like he said, dude, Ricky missed all of preseason. He missed almost all of training camp. And he got shot in the chest. And on top of all of that, he still had an impactful rookie season. And that's even with a stretch of games where he had 0 catches. I think it was like three to 4 games where he didn't catch a football. And he still came away with a pretty solid season. So I'm really excited to see what Ricky Pearsall looks like next year. I'm really excited to see what Ricky looks like with Brandon Ayuk back in the roster. Sounds like Deebo Samuel's returning, Jawan Jennings. Man, if you can utilize all those guys on the field at the same time, it would be fascinating to see how it all plays out. Let's see. Obviously, the 49ers have dealt with a lot of things on the field, but this is Kyle on everything that has happened off the field.
I mean, that stuff's always tough. And I mean, and the football season's so intense for everyone. I mean, that's why anyone who's really been my friend over the last 20 years realizes you're not going to know anything about them for about 7 months, because we kind of go into a hole and you get caught up in the season and all that stuff. But we all do have families and stuff out, and that it does weigh on people. But like, you still got to come and you got to do your job. But like, that stuff is hard, and you watch guys go through it, and it's, I think it, you don't like to watch anyone go through something tragic, but you really watch how impressive people can be going through that stuff. Like, it's when you watch people really grieve and things like that, it's, you realize that's the hardest thing all humans have to deal with. But then to watch people who are grieving so badly and still have to come into a room and then go perform at a high level, which is a whole different type of pressure, and to watch them handle it and get through it, you realize how much stronger some of this stuff makes those guys, and then inspires guys around them. And it does make you closer at times. But like, I think our stuff was pretty documented this year. But there's stuff like that every year. Maybe not quite as big or as many of them. But a lot of teams deal with that stuff. And we've been through a number over these years, and just going through it with Chris Furster and his wife last year, just her passing away a week before the Super Bowl and things like that. And going through it with Johnny over the years, when him battling his cancer and things like that. Like, everyone has those tough moments in life, but when you have to do it through this, it is unique. But when you go through it, I think it does make people a little bit closer and a little bit stronger for going through some of those moments.
And that,
what I like about what he had to say was right there at the end. Although this year was really unfortunate with a lot of those issues and a lot of the things that the 49ers had to deal with in regards to personal tragedy, he just said it brought guys closer together and also can make you stronger. So although this year and stuff like that hasn't been ideal, maybe some solace is that you can grow together a little bit more as a team, even though it didn't, come to fruition on the field. Everyone knows in that building who's got their back, and that says something as well. My guy says the bad off the field vibes hit my family too. Lost my mom on January 4th. Man, terrible. Sorry to hear that, dude. Thoughts and prayers out to you, man. It's been a tough year of tragedy for sure, and 2024. It's a brutal year, man. It was a brutal year in a lot of different ways, but I'm sorry to hear that, dude. And I got a lot of love for you. I get to talk to Corey at every home game. He's sitting right outside where I typically sit. Love chopping it up with my guy. I'm sorry to hear that, man. You're one of my favorite guys out there. So I appreciate you, dog. John Lynch on Dominic Puni.
It shows that our process worked there, and but I would say he really exceeded our expectations. We thought we got a good player. I think he showed us a little more than that, and we were just talking about it upstairs. Everyone saw the real strong play, the consistent play. I think there's more in the tank, of where he can grow. I think the toughness, he dealt with some, he had an AC joint one week, and, we were really questioning whether he could play on Sunday, and he practiced on Wednesday. And I've had that same injury. I always prided myself on having a high pain tolerance. That stuff hurts, and he didn't miss a practice. So I think he's got the right mindset too. And we got to continue to find guys like Dom, because he's going to be a good player for us.
Super excited about Dominic Puni. On Deebo Samuel's podcast he did with Ricky Pearsall yesterday, he said that they were talking about like the rookie wall and how Ricky Pearsall kind of avoided it because of the offseason that he had and the games that he missed and things like that. So he never really hit the rookie wall. But Deebo joked and he said that Dominic Puni told him that he hit the rookie wall 7 weeks ago. And it's been a long year for Puni, man. He started getting a ton of reps in training camp. And then from there on, I mean, don't forget, not only is it a 17-game season, he also played a ton of reps in those 3 preseason games. So it's been a lot for Dominic Puni. He has the most snaps out of any rookie on the roster. And again, that's just the regular season. He had over 1,000 snaps this year. So I think that what we saw of Dominic Puni this year was just scratching the surface. I said, like, my bold take of watching him throughout training camp and then just watching him in his first preseason game or first or second preseason game, I said that this guy is going to be a future All-Pro. And I said that really early on. People were like, oh, Brad, you're just, hype machine, hype this, hype that. No, I fully believe it. I believed it then in preseason, and I believe it now. It might not happen as a rookie, right? Because he's a rookie. It takes some time to be able to earn that cachet in this league, especially when there are a ton of really good offensive linemen in this league already out there. But Dominic Puni has absolutely an opportunity to be an All-Pro player next season by building on what he put together this year. So Dominic Puni is an absolute hit. He's an absolute steal in the 3rd round. I think that if you redraft and with everything that you know now, Dominic Puni's a 1st-round draft pick. So, hey, man, I try my best. To give you guys my honest takes and thoughts and evaluations on offensive line, and I feel very confident about my ability to do that. And so that's why I'm not afraid to have bold claims when it comes to offensive line, because I feel I truly have a feel for evaluating the position. So I saw it right away, and I'm gonna continue to double down on it. I'm going to continue to double down that Dominic Puni will be an all-pro player in this league. And I think it could come as soon as next season, especially with what he was able to do this year. So I'm very excited about Puni, very excited about the future. And the fact that he smashed a rookie wall, dealing with injury, and still played relatively well. I'll take it, man. He's the sky's the limit for Dominic Puni, man. In 2 or 3 years, we might be talking about him as one of the best offensive linemen in the league. He has that potential. So we'll see about that, because there are some really good offensive linemen, but he has a big time opportunity. All right, so back to the quarterback conversation. Kyle Shanahan on Brock Purdy being at OTAs. Let's take a listen to what Kyle has to say.
Yeah, definitely. It's important to have our whole team back for OTAs. And it's actually it's last year, it was like 8 weeks after our last game that our guys needed to be back for voluntary work and stuff, which I think is real important. And the year before that, it was like 9 or 10 weeks. So these last two, and then when we all got back, it was like, you could tell we all were back, but we wish we had a little bit more time. And when I look at a calendar now, I realize we have 14 weeks until we need to get back. Like, I expect everyone to be ready to go and excited to really get this going and play some football. And that starts with Brock. Like, Brock is the leader of our team. I've loved these 3 years with Brock. I plan on being with Brock here the whole time I'm here. So, like, Brock's been a stud. He's a guy I got a lot of confidence in, and just as a human. But it starts with what he's done on the field these last 2.5 years, and we're capable of winning a Super Bowl with him. We just almost did, and I know he's capable of getting the Niners Super Bowl in the future.
All right, so what I actually liked about what he had to say was less about what Brock had to say, less about what he had to say about Brock, more about what he had to say about the beginning of this year. Was because it was such a short turnaround from the Super Bowl to the offseason program. Again, I talked about it. So I did a video on this mid-season before everything spiraled out of control. I said that, and to basically assign why I think this year has gone the way it has. And I said it is an emotional letdown year. They poured so much into last season, not only the last season, but the year before that, where they got eliminated in the NFC Championship game because Brock Purdy tears his UCL. They lose Josh Johnson. They have no quarterback. There has been so many emotional letdowns in back-to-back seasons. And then you go to the season before that, the Jaquaski Tart dropped interception in the NFC Championship game. They probably win the Super Bowl if they get there in that season. So they've had so much emotional letdown, and they've had these extended seasons with long playoff runs that either ended the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship game. And then with that loss to the Chiefs, it was the biggest emotional letdown. I remember so I was credentialed to cover the Super Bowl, and I was standing in the press area watching that final drive. And I was like, this final drive is going to determine what next year looks like. Because if the 49ers win, they will all that effort that they have put in to get to this moment gets rewarded. But if it doesn't, it is so deflating. And I just remember, I'll never forget that I had this conversation with myself when we started overtime. I said, whatever the way this game ends is going to determine what this season will look like. And so I knew that in real time watching the Super Bowl. I knew that whatever was going to happen in the way that game finished was going to have insane impact on this 2024 season. And so it was really easy to see that rolled into training camp. I remember making videos. If you guys remember some of my training camp coverage, the day that stands out to me the most was Dwight Clark Day, the final day of open training camp practices, where they allow fans in attendance. And it was also at the peak dysfunction of the Brandon Ayuk drama. it was the worst training camp practice I have ever seen in regards to energy, in regards to execution, vibes, and it's Dwight Clark Day. So the owners down here, all the alumni are down there. You had all the greats walking around, and it was gross. It was an awful practice. And that was the final one of the open portion. And I was just like, yeah, this just doesn't feel good. Like it doesn't feel right. And I'm like I'm like they haven't gone past it. It's still there. It still remains. And then we're like, hopefully it doesn't, right? Hopefully it doesn't. Let's be optimistic. They're going to be able to get past this. Just a bad day of practice. We're not going to blow it up anything bigger than it is. But unfortunately, I think it was foreshadowing what was ahead of us in the 2024 season. And it comes down to emotional letdown. And I just think with all the injuries, all the tragedies, the fourth quarter losses, and you combine it all together based off what they just came back from, and Kyle just said it, they weren't ready because it was such a quick turn. And Deebo Samuel talked about the depression that he felt after that Super Bowl loss, and then all of a sudden you're back at it again, having to do it. That's how I felt that as a content creator. I was like, oh my gosh, we have to do this again. Like I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready as a content creator. I'm not ready as someone who covers this team. I need more time. So I really, again, I think he's pointing to it. Everyone's pointing to it. It was just a curse year because everyone was kind of on the same wavelength. Everyone was so down, so just depleted. And it just all came to an end with the way that Super Bowl ended, that I don't think anyone was able to like recover. And because they weren't able to recover, and because we had no break from the constant offseason drama, it just kept going. And then when the season started, it was like, wait, the season's starting? Why does it feel like we never had a break from the off season? And I remember talking about that on stream. I was like, man, it felt like the off season never even like got here. It just felt like it was over. But again, shout out to Chapman. Let's get his face up there. All these videos came off his Twitter platform. So shout out to him for being able to put that out there. I know it was a challenge for me to be able to get a hold of that press conference. Would have been phenomenal if the 49ers had streamed it. I don't know why they didn't. But anyways, it is what it is. The additional news to come out of the press conference that we haven't covered yet was in regards to Javon Hargrave. He will be designated as a post-June 1st release. So the 49ers do plan on moving on from him. I think the hope was they knew they needed to impact interior defensive tackle. And so they swung for the fences. Unfortunately, they swung for the fences on a declining player. He still put up 8 sacks that year, but I just don't think it was what they were anticipating. And then for him to get hurt for the season way early on just turned into a disaster, unfortunately. So they did mention that the door could still be open for his return, based on the fact that if they release him, they clear that cap space, and there isn't a market for him, maybe he could return. So we'll see about that. Deebo Samuel, according to John Lynch, says he will return in 2025. I do want to just provide a little bit of nuance about this. I I actually talked about this yesterday. I watched Deebo Samuel's podcast with Ricky Pearsall, and I know a lot of people have been really critical of Deebo this year. They've been critical of his podcast. They've been critical of pretty much everything that Deebo has done. And I found myself being very critical of Deebo Samuel after he sent that tweet out and then proceeded to handle it the way he did and then perform the way he did. That to me was really off-putting from a player I have appreciated for a long time. He was a draft crush of mine. He was a guy that I wanted the 49ers to draft. I was posting about him nonstop about how the 49ers need to draft Deebo Samuel. I wanted him over A.J. Brown. I wanted him over a lot of guys. So Deebo's been a guy that I have really liked for a long time. Deebo Samuel's like one of the first players that I actually ever interviewed and like wrote an article on. So I've always been, I've always been appreciative of Deebo. But this year and how that situation was handled, it really kind of put me off. But I will say, listening to Deebo just kind of chop it up and kind of be himself on that podcast. I appreciated the way he spoke about the year, and I appreciated the way that he just kind of showed his human side. And I was like, all right, Deebo, we're good, man. We're good. Like, I was a little cranky with you there for a second, but we're good. Like, I'm fine with Deebo. Like, I still don't like the tweet. I still don't like the aftermath of it. But Deebo still I'm not gonna, define a guy off that situation. But I do 100%. I see Deebo. We're gonna hug it out. That's why I still appreciate you. I even put Deebo over here. If you haven't seen, we got the Deebo, funk pop. So Deebo, we're good, man. We're good. Right next to me and Joe Montana. So definitely had our rough patches, but hey, a lot of relationships do, right? Strawberry says, I was impressed. Deebo was the only teammate to visit Ricky in the hospital and spent time with Ricky and his family at the hotel in case they needed anything. 100%. And I think, like that's part of like hearing their conversation and hearing how Deebo has been a mentor for Ricky. I think again was like, all right, he's all right, man. Like he's good. He's good, dude. Like I think sometimes like his unwillingness to speak to the media can come off a certain way. And I know why players are hesitant to speak to the media. I have no questions about it. Media like to spin a lot of stupid narratives. And I'm not speaking for every media member at all. I'm not assigning that to everyone. But I get it. I get why why players are hesitant at times. And so I'm good with Deebo, man. I'm good with Deebo. So if he is going to return, they were very they were talking about him as he's returning because he's under contract. So I think that's important to note. Although they were adamant that he is returning, it is important to note he is in the final year of his contract and anything can happen. So I think that over my years of listening to these press conferences and understanding how things are said under certain contexts and pretenses is that he's under contract. So of course they're going to say, yes, he's going to return. He's under contract. They said that. They made that clear. But is Deebo Samuel looking for a new deal? And if he is looking for a new deal, does that mean that he could potentially be playing elsewhere? Do they look to trade him? Because that could still happen. So I liked what they had to say. But they're also not going to be like, yeah, we're gonna trade Debo when you can't predict that. Like there has to be someone who wants to trade for him. There has to be value. So they're never going to openly say like, yeah, we're trying to trade him unless there are certain circumstances that dictate that. But I still think Debo is something to monitor. But if Debo is in training camp, we're rocking. I think it's like the same thing as last year. If Debo makes it beyond the draft, we're rocking with Debo next year. That's how I look at it. So I still think a lot of things can happen. Debo could still be traded. Not saying that he will be traded. I'm just saying it's still a range of outcome. So for me to be like Debo staying in 2025, we'll make it through the draft. Make it through the draft. He's still on the roster. Debo will be there in training camp. So that's the way that I look at it. But they were very adamant about his return. And another player that is expected to return this year is Trent Williams. So again, anything can happen with these roster moves, but as it currently stands right now, and it is stated that Trent Williams is expected to return, and Trent Williams is expected to be on the roster playing for the 49ers next year. Now, again, things can change, things can shift. For me, I feel more inclined that Trent will be here next year. But I think the same thing applies with Trent. Is as long if Trent is still on the roster after the draft, that is what's going to be the ultimate indication to me that he will be here. For example, we saw Joe Staley be a part of this team until he wasn't on draft night because they kept it under wraps until the 49ers were able to make their roster moves that they needed to make. And after they made their moves, Joe Staley announced his retirement. So I'm not saying that's going to happen with Trent, but it is a possibility. So as a result of that being a range of outcome, I will wait until to be fully 100% confident that he will be here. I'm 95% confident, but there's a 5% range of outcome where there is a chance they could potentially do something similar with like Staley did. So, and that's all with respect to Trent, man. Trent deserves the right to be able to do whatever he wants with his future. He's done enough for this franchise that he has earned that right. And so if he decides it's time to spend more time with his family, then he deserves that. I selfishly want Trent here. Trent is one of my all-time favorite players. And I would love him here. But if the future doesn't look that way, nothing but respect for Trent and whatever it is. Is it too early to cop a Purdy Elite jersey? It would be too early for me, but I think it is worth betting on. I do. I again, I'm not 100% that everything is going to work out. I'm close. I'm close to 100, but I'm a ranges of outcomes person, and I have to be realistic with the ranges of outcomes. And a range of outcome is some crazy stuff goes down. So you never know with these negotiations. And if there's any team who is proven, you never know, it's the 49ers. So a lot of great things said within the media these last couple days, but that doesn't mean anything. What really matters is getting ink dried on the contract. And then once the ink is dried, then I will feel confident moving forward. we felt really confident that Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't going to be on this roster 2 years in a row, and he somehow was. So never say never. I would wait because I'm pretty sure those are pretty expensive jerseys. I think they're close to like $300, and that would be a real disappointment to make that investment and then for something to happen. So I believe that they want Brock here. I believe all of those things to be true, but those breakdowns don't happen over wanting someone here. They happen over how much they cost to be here. So or do what Hendricks said. Keep the receipt. Keep the tags on it. Keep the tags on it. Just don't rip the tags off. Keep the receipts. I know, right? You know me with my hot takes. Anything is possible. It's a hot take. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it would be a mistake to move off of Brock because what options do you have? Everyone acts like you can't pay Brock because you need a elite quarterback, except the people who say that never actually acknowledge that elite quarterbacks are one of the rarest things in football. Like how many NFL players are there? Like over 2,000. And there's 3-4 elite quarterbacks in the league. I don't know if you guys have seen that graphic where it talks about like how many players there are in high school to then make it to college, then to make it to the pros. And it's just like the numbers dwindle so much from high school to the NFL that the fact that you have millions of players who are playing the sport of football right now or who have played, and we only have 3 to 4 elite quarterbacks in the league, it just, again, it's such a skewed thought process that like, oh, we can't pay Brock because he's not an elite quarterback. Yet, where do these elite quarterbacks come from? The elite quarterbacks aren't even a sure thing. What pick was Lamar Jackson? 32nd overall. What pick was Josh Allen? He wasn't the first quarterback taken in his class. Patrick Mahomes was the third quarterback taken in his class. Like, even the elite quarterbacks don't even know they're elite until they're elite. So it's like, it's such a crapshoot. The biggest miss rate in the first round are quarterbacks. So it's like, it's super easy to say, oh yeah, well, you can't pay Brock because you need an elite quarterback. Okay. Who's elite? Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Aaron Rodgers. Is that an elite quarterback? No. And if any of those quarterbacks are going to be elite, it's going to take time. They're not elite now. They're not elite prospects. There's no blue chip quarterback prospects in this class. They're not. I don't believe Shedeur is. I don't believe Cam Ward is. There are no elite quarterbacks in this class, at least right out the gate, right? So we'll see. We'll see what happens, and we'll see how it continues to progress and what happens. I hope that they get it done, and I hope they figure it out. And we don't have a long, drawn-out situation this offseason with that conversation. And we get it done, and we get it done in a way that works for everyone, and we move on with our lives. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see how it goes for sure. I actually low-key think Quinn Ewers will be a better pro than he is a college player. And McCord, is it Kyle McCord? I actually got to watch McCord up close and personal at Syracuse when I was on the sideline shooting the Cal game. Don't sleep on that guy. He can spin it. And I like it. I like the way he played. So those two guys to me are like quarterbacks that, man, if they end up in the right situation and they develop the right way. I like those guys. I like their value much better. Hendrick wants to know when we get in some mock draft lives where we're so close to kind of putting a bow on the end of this season. Obviously, we're only a couple days into the season officially being over. We're clearly handling all the administration work of exit interviews and kind of a look back at some of the better performances of the season and things of that nature. But very, very soon, we're going to be all draft, all free agency, and the 2024 season will be a thing of the past. Oh, it's always tinfoil hat season. Now, if you haven't heard some of my analysis of this press conference, it's through a tinfoil hat. Talking about 3 players that I spoke about had through my tinfoil analysis. Purdy, Debo, Trent. All through. I didn't say it's a conspiracy, but I did say just because they said they want Purdy, just because they said Debo Samuel is returning in 25, and just because they said Trent is returning in 25, doesn't necessarily mean they are. It's a good sign. It's a great indication. I gotta find my tinfoil hat, dude. I normally have it over here, the original tinfoil hat. I don't know where it is. I got to clean up my office, by the way. So we got to figure that out. But yeah, man. You always you got to keep the tinfoil hat on, or else you're going to get taken for a ride. It's also important to note that John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, they're so uninterested in telling you everything that they're doing. And I've always said, if I was a general manager or if I was a head coach, I would operate the same way. I would make you think that I'm doing all these things that I'm not. Now you're making me want to find my tinfoil hat. Where is that thing? I'm going to have to find that thing. I'm going to have to find it. We'll see. But again, for like Jam's perspective, Debo's under contract. Dre Greenlaw is not. If Dre Greenlaw was under contract, they would be saying the same thing about Dre Greenlaw. That's kind of my point. So we'll see. Like I said, we'll know after the draft. The draft tells us all. Getting through the draft, that's when all the tinfoil hat theories either are squashed or proven true. So we'll see. We'll see. Come on, Brad. John and Kyle would never lie to us. Never. No, they're not technically lying, right? Because things change, right? Circumstances change. They're not technically lying. They're just, we know things change. It's an ever evolving world. Situations evolve, things change, hearts change. That doesn't mean they're lying, right? Wink, 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 wink. So I'm glad this is over with. I'm glad that this feels like one of the final things of the season. Beyond that, we're definitely moving into free agency and draft season heavily. Let me double check. When is the Senior Bowl? Let me check. I think it's not next week, but the week after. Let's see. I gotta pull up my practice schedule. Pretty sure it's that final week in January, but I want to make sure. What's my password? Come on, dog. Seriously. Mother. All right. Apparently I forgot my password to my email, so I'll have to figure that out. How does that happen? How does that happen? It's been my same email for like 15 years somehow. Tinfoil hat theory. Someone changed my password without me knowing. Let's see. Senior Bowl practice, credential information. Just give me the dates, man. All right. Credential pickup Sunday, January 26th. Perfect. So at the end of this week, or the last week in January will be Senior Bowl week. First practice is on Tuesday, January 28th. Beautiful. All right. So, yeah, we're close. We're really close to being fully in draft season mode. But we'll be back. I'll be back on live with Aponte at 3. So we'll do state of the franchise, do kind of a year in review, and also look ahead at all the different things. So Aponte and I will be on in about 45 minutes. So appreciate everyone for tapping in. We made it through the final press conference of the year. Someone stole my password. We need to figure that out. ASAPolis. But appreciate all you guys. Grab your cookies on the way out. Like I said, we'll be back in 45 minutes, kind of recap the year, state of the franchise style. Appreciate y'all. I'm out for now. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see you.